Hey guys, Dan Javidi here. I hope you're all well. I hope the first couple of days of the lockdown have gone well for you. So you'll be using this time to get on top of some of the work. I definitely am. Some of the things I've been putting off, some of the paperwork, some of the admin tasks. I'm also being roped into doing some things around the house. But look, I wanted to bring you another unedited video. This one is all about the lockdown and property people should not panic. I'm going to be talking about a few things in this video. I did debate about some of the subjects, giving them their own video, but I thought, do you know what, I'll wrap it up in this one video so people watching can try and get everything with the first couple of days. It's been quite a roller coaster, very fast paced, lots of things changing, and a lot of property people will be directly affected. So in the video, I'm going to cover things like the tenant payment holiday that coincides with the mortgage payment holiday. I'm going to talk about the things that you should consider and some of the things that you should do before you consider pulling out of a property purchase that you may have going on right at this moment. I personally have got a couple of property purchases going on and I have debated pulling out some of them I have, but the ones I didn't, I went through some very unique questions and had some conversations with the agents and with the buyers and you know what, decided to carry on, and I'll go through some of those with you as well. I'm going to be talking about why I think now is the time to really start to explore the auction companies. A lot of the auction companies local to where I live are going to hold the auction, but they're going to do it online. That will inevitably mean, less people in the room because there's been no one there, less people bidding, maybe some better deals to be had. Not a subject that I talk about often because it's one I don't really participate in directly, but this one is for the rent-to-renters and what I think that you should be doing right now in this very difficult time, especially those guys who are rent-to-serviced accommodations. Again, not a market I play directly in, but I've got some view from my experience of similar difficult positions that I've been in the past, where I made a decision to not look at the short-term effect, but look at the long-term gain that I could have by doing the right thing at that moment in time, and it has paid dividends to me. So if you are a rent-to-renter, it's not something that I talk about often, but you must continue to watch because I think I've got some really great tips for you. Really just talking about the whole property market in general, that I am doing a new video, a separate video on itself. But look, let's go ahead and get started. So again, no fancy edits. There's no going to be subscribe buttons coming up the bottom of the screen there. But if you haven't already, please do subscribe to my YouTube channel and do hit that like button because it does help the YouTube algorithm, which gets my video at the top of those search engines, which means I can hopefully bring my message and help more property people. So let's talk about this payment holiday and the mortgage holiday. So I was one of the first people to post when this was announced about the mortgage holiday, the 3-month holiday period. And my first phone calls to some of my lenders, based on the conversations I was having with tenants, it was a complete no-no for buy-to-let mortgages. And then I think 12, maybe 18 hours later on, after it was announced by the Chancellor, more and more buy-to-let lenders were coming on the scene, and it was stated that buy-to-let mortgages would benefit from the 3-month holiday period. I can tell you now that I haven't been contacted by many tenants, but I've been proactive in contacting my own tenants. I haven't been having that conversation with them directly. Look, make sure you do pay your rent, because that's not how I work with the tenants. I've been making sure they're okay, making sure the houses are okay. And you know what? Some people have come back to me and said, actually, Dan, this fence has fallen down, or this tile has come off my roof, or whatever it may be. But I've been having those conversations. I've been really lucky that I've had one guy said to me that he lost his job. He was a taxi driver. And he actually said to me that he wants to start paying straight away, more frequently, every week, so he can get on top of his rent. Am I happy with that? Absolutely. We'll accommodate anyone's circumstances. Since the mortgage payment holiday was announced, we've had some more help announced for workers, business owners, businesses, sick pay, all sorts of things. So there's lots of different things out there to help people, but they aren't going to come knocking on your door. You need to proactively go out there and get them. And you may need to have a conversation with your tenant who is directly affected through this crisis to proactively go out there and knock on the doors and get some of these benefits. 80% of people's wage, if you're an employed person, is huge. It is absolutely massive. So people who are potentially losing their jobs, some people I've heard have already lost their jobs and then been rehired because of this 80% payment given to the government to pay towards wages so people don't lose their jobs. That will directly influence and help with people to pay their rent, which in turn will help the landlords pay their mortgage. So let's talk about the mortgage holiday. So I think it's pretty much a given. As long as you're not in any arrears already, as long as there's not some other conditions attached to your current mortgage or some other issues that you've had, I'm pretty sure that if you're a residential mortgage holder, you can call the lender, if you can get through that is, and request this 3-month payment holiday. I have spoken to so many people about this, and I have heard some horror stories where people have been ringing some lenders, some high street lenders, and they are literally sitting on the phone for an hour, even up to 2 hours, and then the phone just goes dead. And they're doing that 3-4 times a day, and then that day is gone. Just be persistent. Contact some of these lenders on social media. Send them emails. Record your contact with them so you can demonstrate that you are absolutely trying your best to contact these lenders. But like I say, if you've got a residential mortgage where you live, you should be able to get your 3-month holiday period. Buy-to-let landlords, unfortunately, it's not going to be as easy. I have still got some lenders for my own personal properties, the ones that I've contacted, off the back of tenants contacting me who are experiencing some difficulties. And 2 of those lenders have point blank said no, but 1 has said no quite rigorously, and they are not going to budge. They're saying that this is an advisory, this isn't compulsory, and they're just not going to do it. On the other hand, there's some lenders out there who have been proactive in contacting me, saying to me, if you need a payment holiday, as long as you need it because your tenants aren't paying and they've been directly affected, get in contact with us and let us know. And I think, do you know what? Even though you don't necessarily need it and you're not going to contact them, but knowing that you can do it, I think that goes a long way. So yes, the lenders might not always be the cheapest. They might have the cheapest product fees. They might have expensive valuations. Their processes and their admin might at times make you pull your hair out. But some of the lenders, I think, who should be acknowledged, Precise, Shawbrook, I think those guys have been so proactive in trying to contact landlords to try and help. So big thumbs up to those guys, and absolutely, hats off to you for proactively contacting landlords. But look, for those landlords who have a buy-to-let mortgage who can't get a payment holiday, you need to be honest with your tenants. There is enough help out there for the tenants to contribute towards that rent payment if you can't get a buy-to-let payment holiday. So it's not all doom and gloom. However, my advice is to be persistent with the lender. Don't take that first no. Keep sending them emails. Keep telling them the reason why. Give them the evidence that your tenant's contacted you. Give them the evidence that your tenant has given you, GDRP, given and all that. And have everything recorded. Because if you've got the evidence there, it will always come back to help you should the worst case happen in the next few months. So payment holidays, buy-to-lets, tenants, there's a circle here, and you just need to be the one driving it, whether it be helping your tenants, contact your tenants, contacting the lender, proactively pestering the lender, or actually just acknowledging when a lender's been really good to you. Okay, next thing is purchases. So before you jump the gun and pull out of a purchase, just think about it for a second. You may be quite far down the line. You may have already paid for valuations. You may have already paid some legal fees. You may have paid the lender's legal fees in terms of undertakings and things. And you may be into it for 2, 3, 4, 5 grand. But if that property, for whatever reason, is not going to work, given the potential economic issues we're going to have in the future, and given what is pretty much certain that the property prices are going to drop back, then cut your losses, pull out of that deal. Do not stick in a deal for the sake of a few grand that you've spent already that could end up costing you 10 times that, should you take on a project or buy a property that is not going to deliver in the unknown market that is coming forward. Equally, before you just rash and jump the gun and pick up the phone to the agent or the vendor and pull out of a deal, think about it. If the market is going to drop, which it pretty much is going to do, there's going to be a lot less finance available, and there's going to be a lot less people with cash who can move quickly and buy properties. Then have a conversation with the vendor, with the agent, have the discussion. I mean, there's properties that I'm buying that were 20k difference in price, very similar sort of markets. Now, I've gone out there and had that conversation because I'm actually getting offered some deals already. The first 2 days of this week, I've had deals been sent to me, and they are like 30k below the cheapest one that I'm buying now. So if that's going to be the market, then that's the market. No one can change that, and I have to adapt as a property investor to that market. So I've pulled out of the higher purchases. But the ones that I thought were a pretty good deal, I'm having the conversations with the agent, I'm having the conversations with the vendor, and I'm saying, you know, look, I'm being offered these deals, they've been reduced in price because of what's going on, but I'm committed to buying your property, I'm happy to continue to buy it, but let's talk about the price, maybe of the property you're buying and how we can help you negotiate there. And if you can have those conversations, I'm not necessarily saying that you're going to get a cheaper price or you should get a cheaper price. What I am saying is have the conversation. Maybe you are happy to continue buying it at that price. However, you just want to see what happens over the next 4 to 5 weeks. Or maybe you don't want to tie up too much cash over the next 4 to 5 weeks. So have the conversation and say, you know, look, I'm happy to stick with buying this property at this price. However, I just want a bit of time. And I'm sure if you have that conversation, more times than none, they'll agree to continue and the sale will proceed. So don't just be too rash before don't just pull out of property purchases too quickly. Okay. Rent to renters. I think this is really the big thing of the whole video. And I was going to say it right to the end, but I'm going to do it now. So, out of all of the property networks that I'm involved in, and I host one myself, and all of my wider contacts over Facebook and other social media platforms and emails and texts and WhatsApp groups and all those things, there are more rent-to-renters than any other property person doing a property strategy that I'm aware of. And the reason for that is because it's quite an easy access platform to get onto the property journey if you haven't got any cash, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And the hot topic absolutely at this moment in time is rent to serviced accommodation. So this is people who take a property off a landlord, agree a rent, and they rent that property out, not as a whole house, but individual rooms based on the night income. So they rent it out by night, or maybe 2 nights or a week or whatever, on Airbnb and Booking.com. I personally don't directly play in this market. I am on the receiving end as a landlord on a rent to service accommodation to a really good operator. You know, he's got a really good business model. However, that market in this crisis has been massively hit. The bookings that have cancelled, and I don't know the exact numbers, but from what I've seen, it has got to be up there at 60-70%. I'm seeing operators who have been within my network of property people for years, reducing their prices by 50% just to get these properties filled. I'm seeing people offer their properties at cost just so they don't have the burden of the cost to the landlord, which there is nothing wrong with any of that. You've got to do what you've got to do when the market is against you to survive. I totally get that. But we are only at the very early stage of this crisis and what is going to be, I think, a drawn out period over the next few weeks, months. And rent-to-renters who tend not to have huge cash reserves because of the very nature of the beast may start to consider to say, do you know what, I'm not making any money, it's costing me money, enough is enough, I'm giving it back to the landlord, regardless of what the agreement is. I urge you, this is my biggest bit of advice I will ever give to a rent-to-renter or rent-to-service accommodation. Do not do that. And I don't tell you that for my own gain. I tell you that speaking from experience about looking for the long term here, the long term thing. Rent-to-renters, rent-to-service accommodation, whatever, there tends to be a huge number of new people enter that market every 18 months or so. And the reasons behind that we can get into, training, various things, low cash, whatever it is. But the reputation of that sector, because of the churn rate, is that it's a little bit unreliable and people come and people go. If you're serious about entering the property market and investor and developing in the future and using it as a springboard to financial security, freedom, whatever you want to call it, then you have to consider your reputation, and you have to consider that a true person is measured when their back is against the wall. And money is a good indicator of the true sort of intention, ability, integrity, whatever you want to call it, from a person. Now, what I will say is, if you have the conversation with your landlord and you say, look, I've got this property, I've agreed the rent, I know we're a year into a 2-year deal or whatever it is, but I can't rent it to my market. Can we work something out? And he says, look, do you know what? I'll take the property back. You've come to an amicable solution, that's fine. I'm not talking about not doing that, not having that conversation, have that conversation. But let's say you have that chat and the landlord says, well, look, you know, we agreed a 5-year deal, you're a year, 2 years into it. I'm sorry, but, you know, this is the property world and I can't afford now in this market just to take that property back off of you because I can't rent it out. Don't fall out with the guy. Don't try and convince him otherwise. Take it on the chin, if you can, financially. And look to other markets. If you do that, I promise you, you will have proven your worth and your integrity, and it will be worth so much more to you than any monetary value that you will lose or make in this short space of time, because this will be a short space of time. Things will get difficult. You will be up against the wall. You really will. And this is where you will really have to cut back on certain things. I remember when I first got into property investing, so I wasn't buying and selling, I was buying and holding and renting out to students. And I remember I was doing it on a real shoestring pot of cash. And when I bought one, I was literally, I think I was like going overdrawn. And then I remember when our property would be refurbished and it would be ready to rent to tenants, I couldn't afford like a mortgage payment to come out of my bank with my own residential mortgage because I just didn't have enough cash. And I was hugely up against the wall. So I was doing everything I could to fill that property as quickly as I could, just so I could afford that mortgage payment. And it's not too dissimilar to the rent-to-renters and the rent-to-service accommodation. The only difference here is that you're not missing or making a mortgage payment. This is a landlord who's got a mortgage. This is a person in your local market. And if you can do everything you can to continue to satisfy that landlord, even if it's costing you money and you can afford it, then do it. Because when this is all over and your market starts to ramp up again, or landlords start to offer you properties, the one thing that you can hang your hat on, you can say, look, and not only have I got a bit of experience doing this now, but when things got really difficult, when we had this coronavirus crisis, there was 99% of rent-to-renters around the UK just hanging up the keys and walking away from the landlord. I didn't do that. I stuck with it. I stuck by my word and I honoured my agreement with the landlord, and it cost me some money, but I did it. I promise you, you will get more deals, you will get more from the existing landlords than you ever would before, and overall, it will springboard you onto the next level of whatever strategy or whatever direction you want to go into within property. I promise you, if you do that, if you can do that, if you can afford to do that, then do it. If you can't, then you need to start having some of those conversations really early on, or maybe start having some conversations with other property people in your circle, in your area, who may be able to assist. And alternatively, you're going to have to start looking to some different markets, because that Airbnb and Booking.com sounds to be a bit turmoil at the moment. So you need to start looking at maybe, some of the other markets. I could list that there's hundreds, but some of the markets relevant to your area. So rent to renters, that's my bit of advice. And please listen to it. I know it sounds crazy. It's not the normal YouTube videos where you're talking about rent to rent, make £1,000 a month and do 10 of them a week and all this. Because this is the reality of property investing. This is the reality of rent to rent when you are up against it, when the market turns against you. And this is not the first time, and it will not be the last time. I promise you that. Okay, so finishing off. So I can appreciate this is unedited, so we're up to 20 minutes now. So finishing off, the last thing is, property people, do not panic. So that was the title of the video. It's what I said right at the start. I've given you some reasons and not to panic, and some things going on within the sector. But even though right now this feels like the worst thing that's ever happened, and it's pretty close to the worst thing that's ever happened in my lifetime and most people's lifetime, this is serious, and it's not to be underestimated. However, if we look at history, we can't compare this to the 2008 crash, or the crash in the early 90s, or 9/11, or all these different things. We can't compare it, 'cause it's completely different. But every crisis is the worst thing at that moment in time. But the dark clouds that are over us right now, above that, is the blue sky. That it's still there. We just can't see it. And it's the same with property. The dark clouds are surrounding. It seems like everything is against us. Mortgage holidays aren't really there for buy-to-let landlords. The government benefits, grants, loans, all these various things, they're all sort of indirectly positioned not to help the property investor like you and I. Don't get me wrong, there's some out there for some of the empty properties and pubs and things that you'll have, but majority of us, they're not there. And if you're in serviced accommodation right now, it really does feel like, things are getting tight. But these are all just dark clouds, and they will eventually pass. And that blue sky will be back, and our normal lives as property investors will resume. We just have to do what we can do now to ride this wave. Don't act rash. Don't do anything you will regret. Get liquid if you can. Refinance if you can, rather than sell, because it's not going to be a great time to sell. There are lenders out there who are business as usual, proactive, easy to do business with, and I urge you to speak to a broker and have the conversation from their point of view on who those banks are, because a broker is on your side of the fence. They want an easy life. They don't want to go through this and the lender pulls the rug from under your feet. They want to see this through to the end. And if you've got a refinance, there won't be many new people bringing new purchases to them at the moment, so they'll be there eager to help you. Don't act too rashly. Do not panic. And when it's all the dust is settled, you'll be in a position where you've kept the majority of your assets. Yes, okay, it's cost you some money, it's cost you some cash, it's cost you some liquidity, but we will all bounce back. Just don't act too rash. If you've got any concerns, if you've got any questions, or if you've got a specific set of circumstances which I haven't discussed on this video or previous videos that you have no idea where to turn to, or you just want my steer on it, feel free to send me a message and I will come back to you as soon as I can. But that's it from me, guys. Stay safe, don't panic, keep looking, keep investing, and don't let your wife get you doing too many chores around the house. You can see I've come to a different part of our house, so I have some peace and quiet on my own. Stay safe, guys. See you soon. Cheers. Bye.